Hi, boys and girls. It's Bored with Miss Reynolds. Better off reading every day. And have I got a good one for you? And it is celebrating something that a lot of my kids are celebrating right now. They've been celebrating it since Sunday on my birthday, and it continues. And I wanted to show this to you. It is called The Keeping Quilt by Patricia Polasico. The Keeping Quilt. And of course, we have our quilt right here. But guess what? Miss Reynolds needs to sit down in order to read this book to you. So I am going to spread out this quilt right here. And read this beautiful book to you. This is such a beauty. All right. The Keeping Quilt. When my great-grandma Anna came to America, she wore the same thick overcoat and big boots she had worn for farm work. But her family weren't dirt. Oh, I'm going to start again because this book is so beautiful that I want you to get it just like I got it when I read it for the first time. When my great-grandma Anna came to America, she wore the same thick overcoat and big boots she had worn for her farm work. But her family weren't dirt farmers anymore. In New York City, her father's work was hauling things on a wagon, and the rest of the family made artificial flowers all day. Everyone was in a hurry, and it was so crowded, not like in back home Russia. But all the same, it was their home, and most of their neighbors were just like them. When Anna went to school, English sounded like English sounded to her like pebbles dropping into shallow water. Shh, 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 shh. In 6 months, she was speaking English. Her parents almost never learned, so she spoke English for them too. The only things she had left of back home Russia were her dress and the babushka she liked to throw up into the air when she was dancing. And her dress was getting too small. After her mother had sewn her a new one, she took her old dress and babushka. Then, from a basket of old clothes, she took Uncle Vladimir's shirt, Aunt Havala's nightdress, and an apron of Aunt Natasha's. We will make a quilt to help us always remember home, Anna's mother said. It will be like having the family in back home Russia dance around us at night. And so it was. Anna's mother invited all the neighborhood ladies. They cut out animals and flowers from the scraps of clothing. Anna kept the needles threaded and handed them to the ladies as they needed them. The border of the quilt was made of Anna's babushka. On Friday nights, Anna's mother would say the prayers that started the Sabbath. The family ate challah and chicken soup. The quilt was the tablecloth. Anna grew up and fell in love with great grandpa Sasha. To show he wanted to be hold on. Anna grew up and fell in love with great grandpa Sasha. To show he wanted to be her husband, he gave Anna a gold coin, dried flour, and a piece of rock salt, all tied into a linen handkerchief. The gold was for wealth, the flour for love, and the salt so their lives would have flavor. She accepted the hanky. They were married. Under the wedding chuppah, Anna and Sasha promised each other love and understanding. After the wedding, the men and women celebrated separately. When my grandma Carl was born, Anna wrapped her daughter in the quilt to welcome her warmly into the world. Carl was given a gift of gold, flour, salt, and bread. Gold, so she would never know poverty, a flour, so she would always know love, salt, so her life would always have flavor, and bread, so that she would never know hunger. Carl learned to keep the Sabbath and to cook and clean and do washing. Married you'll be someday, Anna told Carl, and again the quilt became a wedding chuppah, this time for Carl's wedding to Grandpa George. Men and women celebrated together, but they still did not dance together. In Carly's wedding bouquet was a gold coin, bread, and salt. Carly and George moved to the farm in Michigan, and great grandma Anna came to live with them. The quilt once again wrapped a new little girl, Mary Ellen. Mary Ellen called Anna Lady Gamma. She had grown very old and was sick a lot of the time. The quilt kept her legs warm. On Anna's 98th birthday, the cake was kulish, a rich cake with raisins and candied fruit in it. When great Grandma Anna died, prayers were said to lift her soul to heaven. My mother, Mary Ellen, was now a grown up. When Mary Ellen left home, she took the quilt with her. When she became a bride, the quilt became her huppah. For the first time, friends who were not Jews came to the wedding. My mother wore a suit, but in her bouquet were gold, bread, and salt. The quilt welcomed me, Patricia, into the world, and it was the tablecloth for my first birthday party. At night, I would trace my fingers around the edges of each animal on the quilt before I went to sleep. I told my mother stories about the animals on the quilt. She told me whose sleeve had made the horse, whose apron had made the chicken, whose dress had made the flowers, and whose babushka went around the edge of the quilt. The quilt was a pretend cape when I was in the bull ring, or sometimes a tent in the steaming Amazon jungle. At my wedding to Enzo Mario, men and women danced together. In my bouquet were gold, bread, and salt, and a sprinkle of wine, so I would always know laughter. "20 years ago, I held Tracy Denise in the quilt for the first time. Someday, she too will leave home and she will take the quilt with her." And that is the end, boys and girls, of the Keeping Quilt. Isn't that beautiful? Boys and girls, it is Bored with Miss Reynolds, better off reading every day. I do not own the right to this book that I have read to you, but I love storytelling magic. And the magic of this story is when my teacher gave it to me and said, read this to the kids while I was substituting, I had never read this book before. And as I read it, each page that I turned, I felt more and more in love with it and knew it had to be in my collection. So as soon as I got out of there, I found a way to order this book, get the quilt together, get everything together, to put this together to read to my kids for Hanukkah, because we celebrate all different holidays at school. And one of my favorite is also Hanukkah, because my cousins are raising their children, and they celebrate Hanukkah with their husbands and their family. And I just find it to be a beautiful, beautiful way to bring everybody together. So that is why I wanted to bring this book to you. And I also wanted to say to you, boys and girls, we have a lot of traditions in my family, and things that are passed down. And I love that the quilt is something that's passed down throughout this family and shows tradition in this book. Also, it has been a while since Miss Reynolds has been at headquarters, and that's simply because I suffered so much loss back in April, and I have just been out and about and reading wherever I was, and not having a chance to come back to headquarters and read by the fireplace where it all started with you. I shed a lot of tears. I had a lot of laughs, and I had a lot of things go on since the passing of my daughter's father, my grandfather, and my daughter's godfather. And I'm glad that we are back here again. I recently just celebrated my birthday. I'm 52, and it's just so nice to come back to a place that makes me feel so wonderful and read a book that makes me feel so wonderful. I hope that the magic is that it does the same for you and your family. And I just want to say happy Hanukkah. And I will see you again really, really soon. It has been my absolute pleasure. Bored with Miss Reynolds, better off reading every day, putting a little knowledge in your head, a lot of love in your heart, and making you laugh your buns off every now and then. That's what I do here at headquarters. So, the Keeping Quilt, there she is. And of course, you know I live for my props. And this was the props for this book. Look at that baby. And this I'm going to be wrapped up in later because it's the weather here in New York is absolutely horrible. So it's a perfect time to be wrapped up in a quilt. Ooh, let's see if we could twirl with this baby. Let's get it in the back. Ready? And any chance that I get to read a book, hang out with you, do a twirl, and just completely be 110% silly, that's what I'm here to do. I'll see you again really soon. How many 52-year-olds do you know that get to read, twirl, and make memories?